Hi, this is Chatterboxing. I'm Sean. But I want to talk in this video about the Sergey Kovalev Anthony Yarde fight from the other day. I want to talk a little bit about the aftermath of it as well. A very good performance from both of them. Obviously, Kovalev got the win, but a really impressive performance from Anthony Yarde, all things considered, in my opinion. Now, he obviously was lacking in terms of experience and just sort of boxing development, but in terms of heart, grit, determination, mentality, composure, all of that, he's very, very impressive. Done himself proud, done the country proud. But Kovalev was just, a few levels above as people. Well, we knew really, at least we knew Kovalev was there. We should know if Anthony Yarde could make some mad jump up all these levels. Now he did as well as he could have done under those circumstances. He has had no preparation. He had no preparation for that fight at all. He's basically gone from fighting area level to world championship level. Gets one of the best in the world in their hometown. So he just got literally thrown in at the deep end. Go on, son, see what you can do. So yeah, he did an incredible job, really, and he can be very proud of himself. But obviously, as everybody had been saying for a long time, the way they've been building him up wasn't the right way of going about it. You need to be in challenges. You need to develop step by step. You've got to fight against people. He'd never even done 12 rounds before. Now, if he'd never done 12 rounds because he'd stepped up the levels, he just knocked everyone out, that is what it is. There's nothing you can do about that. But he hadn't been. He'd been fighting against, just no hopers, really, for his entire career. So he had no real learning fights. Now, I'm hearing, I don't know if this is true or not, they're saying that he hadn't even done his sparring for the fight. He was just doing a little bit with Tunde Ajayi. Now, if that's the case, then that's mad. That's madness. Because you could see in there as well the lack of sharpness and the lack of timing, the distance control. Now, a lot of that does come with experience, and that could just be that Sergey Kovalev had the physical advantage, had the reach advantage. Obviously, he's very experienced. He's fought against a lot of very, very good opponents. So he's going to have that advantage anyway. But if it is true that Yarde hadn't been sparring at all, that could explain why his timing was a bit off. His sharpness wasn't quite there. So you see him trying to do the Mayweather defense, which a lot of people commented on before the fight, which wasn't really going to be appropriate for this style matchup. Kovalev obviously having a very good jab, very precise with it, quick feet, longer arms than Yarde. Also a good body puncher as well. The thing that Kovalev does as well with a jab really impressed me. I mean, this was really a masterclass in jabbing this fight. Because he's got a really good jab to the head, jab to the body, but he just very subtly, he'll just kind of dip his shoulder, he'll come up from one angle, he'll turn the other way, and he'll get you from. He's just got so many slight variants to the jab. It's really, really difficult to deal with, especially if you're someone as inexperienced as Anthony Yarde. And that was obviously the difference in the fight. He was also able to come over with the good punches over the top. He got some good body punches in. Now, Yarde obviously had the reach disadvantage, the sharpness disadvantage, and quite often he's got a really good lead left hook, Yarde, but he come in a bit short with it sometimes. Kovalev will punish him with 3 or 4 punches before stepping off, just chipping away at him, and bit by bit, really punishing Anthony Yarde. Now, Anthony Yarde did very, very well to hang on in there. He showed a very good chin. He showed a massive pair of bollocks, big heart. There's a lot of positives for him from here. Definitely showed a lot of natural ability. Because for someone to go in there on that stage with that little experience, amazing for him to put up that kind of performance. Nearly knocked Kovalev out in the 8th round. There was that point where he was just starting to get on the front foot, and he was getting that uppercut to the body, which was working a treat. He sort of timed it well, boom. But he just didn't really have that ability to sort of close that distance well enough and cope with the jab of Kovalev and the long punches. But obviously they're doing quite a bit of damage, but that was the difference. Now, if Anthony Yarde had been prepared properly for the fight, if he'd have had these sort of step-up fights along the way, if he managed to go 12 rounds, or at least go, look, if you're putting him in there with people and he's getting him out before 12 rounds, fair enough, nothing you can do about that. But they hadn't been putting him in there with people. They've been putting him in with knockover jobs. and he hadn't really had that progression. He never fought against anyone with a decent jab, with someone with the ability to kind of outbox him from range. But he was really just sort of relying on his reflexes, physical strength. He's basically able to overwhelm people. Now, he couldn't do that to Kovalev. Now, he showed great determination. The fact that even though it wasn't working and he was getting out jabbed and punished, he didn't show any signs of being demoralised or giving up. He kept going. In the end, he had to be, like the cliche went out on his shield. He had to be, he got knocked down with a jab. It was pure exhaustion at that point. He was just getting out, beaten to the punch all night long. Took some off a very big puncher, and in the end, physically, he just couldn't handle it. Obviously, he'd done those. He kind of shot his load a little bit in the 8th round. Again, comes with experience because he'd never been in a 12 round. He doesn't know like what it's like to go 12 rounds. He might have been thinking, should I do this? Shouldn't I do that? He doesn't really know if I do that, how am I going to feel in the next round? That's got to be in the back of his head. So there was one time where he really went for it, like sort of round 7 and 8, and apart from that, he was a little bit. I mean, he was throwing his punches, but he wasn't really forcing the action as much as he probably would have done had he done that before, and he knew that he got those rounds in the bank. So, yeah, I mean, the lack of preparation for Anthony Yarde going into this was what cost him. Not to take anything away from Kovalev, because that was a really masterful performance from Kovalev. Now, as I say, the jab, like the different angles from it, the composure, knowing when to, just hold back a little bit, but still give enough to sort of keep Yarde away from him. Obviously, like it was that pivotal moment in the 9th round after nearly being knocked out. Then he came back and sort of knew exactly how to, because he could sense that Yarde had sort of slowed down a little bit, but he was still coming forward. Kovalev was still sort of picking away at him without really giving too much away to then come on strong in the 10th round, which is when he really put it on Yarde. Did very well to get through that. Now, also, I think Buddy McGirt did a very good job in the corner, great advice. He was saying to him at the end of that round, listen, you're taking too many punches, I'm going to have to pull you out. Gave him a bit of a kick up the arse. Kovalev responded well to that. That experience in the corner, again, I think was a big advantage. So, Anthony Yarde, I mean, hopefully, this does him work. This is good for him psychologically. I hope he doesn't go in there, sort of come back from that and think, I got like quite thoroughly outboxed, because that style he had of fighting up to this point had been very successful for him. So in that fight, it proved unsuccessful. So I hope he doesn't get demoralised. But he certainly shouldn't do. So hopefully he can come back from that. But now the lack of sparring, if that is true, is very, very worrying. Now I said in the video before that the delusion and the kind of the way that Tunde Ajayi seems to think that kind of conventional wisdom doesn't apply to him is a bit of a concern for me. Like, if he thinks that, we don't need to spar because I know better. Now, you could see in that fight the lack of sharpness by Anthony Yarde. Now, that could be just, the lack of experience, the fact he was just outgunned, really, by Kovalev. But he did look like his timing wasn't great. He tried to come in with those lead left hooks with a jab, and you could just see that Kovalev was just sharper. Now, Yarde, he has naturally very good reflexes that could make up for it. But if he had been doing proper sparring, then he'd be that bit sharper. So that was a huge disadvantage to him. As I said, the lack of opponents, the lack of 12-round fights, the lack of different styles. Not just different styles, this bloke's got a different style, just some nobody from wherever. Do you know what I mean? Like the lack of different styles against actual challenges. So that is a concern. Also, let's not be silly. He did take a lot of punishment in that fight, Anthony Yarde. So I commend him for showing a lot of heart, good chin. We're all very proud of him, etc., etc. But going forward, that's not something that we want to see all the time. You know what I mean? So you've got to get prepared better for the fight. You can't be going into fights with, if he now goes and fights against, let's say, Callum Johnson, Joshua Buatsi, then go like Bivol, Beterbiev, Grodzik, I don't know how you pronounce that. you can't be going in there just sort of thinking, well, I was going to take a load of punches and it's all right because I can sort of, fight through it and I don't need to do any sparring. Do you know what I mean? That should be a wake-up call. Now, a lot of people are now questioning, well, not questioning, a lot of people have been questioning for a while, Tunde Jai as trainer. Now, obviously, it's complicated because the relationship that they have is obviously a very good one. Now, I do give Tunde Jai credit for what he's done with Anthony Yarde, because Anthony Yarde, I went to him as basically a teenager, complete novice. He's got him to a certain level where he's good. Now, it's pretty clear that he's naturally very talented, Anthony Yarde. He's got a lot of physical gifts. He's obviously got a lot of heart. And he's got a good brain as well. You can tell just listening to him, he's got a good head on his shoulders. He's someone that will study and learn. So he does have a lot of natural gifts, but Tunde Jai does deserve some credit for what he's done. And obviously, in terms of motivationally, psychologically, he does a lot for him. But in terms of the technical boxing skill, I mean, he was utterly schooled by Kovalev. Let's not, mince our words. That was a complete schooling, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you're supposed to get schooled by people who have a lot more experience than you. As long as you don't take it, just keep over and over. Look, Canelo got completely schooled by Mayweather, and look how he came back. So that in itself is not disastrous, but you definitely need to see big improvements in his team in terms of going into it. You've got to have proper sparring. You've got to be. The matchmaking has to be better. Now, Frank Warren, I saw Frank Warren interview talking about his sort of lack of experience. Like, well, now whose fault is that, Frank? Do you know what I mean? You were putting him on headlining on BT against people we'd never heard of in however many rounds the fight was supposed to be. So, yeah, you need to see. I would like to see, ideally, I would like to see Anthony Yarde bring someone else in. Now, I don't know if he would get rid of Tunde Jai because of the relationship they have. You saw with Anthony Joshua talking about Rob McCracken. I'm not comparing Tunde Jai to Rob McCracken because Rob McCracken does have a lot more experience. But he was saying that loyalty to him is very important, where he's got into, not just in boxing, but as a man. Now, I think definitely the same thing would be the case there. So, in an ideal world, you'd think that he would bring in someone with a bit more experience, someone with a bit more of a level head, someone a bit more conventional, and with a bit more substance to what they're doing. And then keep Tunde Jai in as part of the team. The problem is, I don't know if that's doable, really, with the ego of Tunde. Now, I saw one interview with him after the fight, and he's talking about, there's a few things when he's sort of going on how like the teach is due to like the sort of teaching. Like, not saying that he's not giving credit to Anthony Yarde, and he's trying to take it all himself, but he's implying that his teaching and his methods are basically the main reason, or at least one of the main reasons, why Anthony Yarde was able to do what he did. And I don't agree with that at all. I think the Anthony Yarde's physical abilities, I think his determination, his heart, plus a little bit of his schooling has obviously got a lot to do with it, but I don't think the way he's been prepared has done him any favours at all. And look, you're not talking about playing football or something like that. If you're going to be going into fights with people, like, he's not a flyweight, these are big lumps, light heavyweights. You're going to get punched in the face. I mean, he's just taken a load of punches of Sergey Kovalev. Now, if it is true that he hasn't done any sparring, he's not really sharp, he's a bit kind of, his reflexes aren't there, his timing's not there, that's not really good enough. If you're basically fighting all these people who are just no threat to you, suddenly, boom, right, go and fight against one of the best in the world, that's not really good enough. You need someone with a better understanding of the game and someone with a bit more respect for the game. Not just someone who thinks they sort of know better and they're trying to make a name for themselves as some kind of genius, which is the impression that I get from Tunde Jai. Not to say he doesn't care for Anthony Yarde, I'm not saying that for 1 minute. I just don't really like his philosophy. When I saw the same interview talking about the positives and negatives, and then he started talking about, instead of talking about because there are negatives, he instead of talking about that, he started then sort of flip that onto, negative comments. Like people, it's not about that, mate. It's not about like what someone on YouTube or someone on Twitter. You got focus. We're talking about there are negatives in the fight. He was getting hit far too much. His stamina wasn't good enough. His timing wasn't good enough. He was out of his depth in terms of the opponent and the level. There are serious, like technical, strategic things you need to look at which are negative. That's not to then, turn it into just some fat prick on his couch, just sort of saying, oh, you're a wanker. And that's, do you know what I mean? That's kind of how he was trying to imply that the negative was, to kind of sweep under the carpet all the technical preparational deficiencies, which he was basically saying there aren't none. It's just, he just gassed out. No, it wasn't that he just gassed. I mean, yeah, it was. That was obviously a big problem, but it's not. There are reasons for that, and there are ways that can be addressed. So me personally, I would definitely like to see him with a new trainer. I like Tunde Ajayi, and I do quite like the relationship they have and the positivity that they have to a certain extent. But at the same time, you have to be realistic. And if you're going in there, light heavyweight, getting smacked in the mouth round after round by big punching lumps like Kovalev and Buatsi and people like that, then you need to have a serious attitude towards it in terms of training, in terms of sparring, in terms of preparation. So yeah, I mean, there's not really much else I can say at this point. Congratulations to Sergey Kovalev. It was a very, very good performance from him. Massive congratulations. Well, not that's the wrong word, but like very proud of Anthony Yarde for the performance he put in, for how well he sort of kept his composure throughout the week, how well he represented British boxing. And I'm really hoping that they can come back from this, or he can come back from this, which I'm sure he will, but start to look at some of these things that people have been criticising in the past, and actually start taking them seriously and realise that it's not all just sort of negative comments for the sake of it. A lot of it is actually constructive criticism that is worth listening to. So yeah, that's all I've got to say about it for now. Let me know what you lot think, and thank you very much for watching.